Good afternoon. I'm Lucy Beadnell with the Arc of Northern Virginia. I'm our Director of Advocacy, and we are right at the end of 2024 and start of 2025, and that's when Virginia government really heats up and gets busy. Our General Assembly, our state government, really only meets once a year. And because 2025 is an odd numbered year, that means they're only going to be meeting for 45 consecutive days. They will come home on weekends, but the session is 45 consecutive days long. So our window to make big policy change, law changes, pass an amended budget is tight. So we're going to be talking today about our opportunities to engage with them and to really make the voices of the disability community heard during and before, during, and after that session to start leading into the following year. I'm going to bring up some slides to walk us through some options for 2025. If you're joining us here live, feel free to type in questions anytime. I will get to all of them today. There's no reason we can't do that. So we're going to talk through a bunch of ways to engage in advocacy because opportunities are many. You can do as many or as few of these as you would like. And we'll talk through what those will look like, but don't feel like you're limited by things. Choose what fits best with your personality. If you're the kind of person who likes to speak or the kind of person who writes, keep that in mind with your schedule, with where you live, those sorts of things. But we'll do a quick review of our legislative priorities, some of the main things that we're focusing on this year. And then I'll dive into what's coming up in the next few weeks. Those will be town halls and budget hearings, quick ways to get a speech out before General Assembly even begins. That's when our legislators are gathering feedback on what we want them to do once they get to Richmond. From there, they'll be in Richmond and our strategy will change a little bit. So we'll talk about how to respond to action alerts for bills or budget amendments as things are moving along through session. We'll talk about our plans to go down and see those legislators in person and what that's going to look like. It's going to be a different sort of day in 2025 than it has been in the past. We'll talk about how to have some virtual meetings for folks who want to have those conversations but can't come down on the bus, and give you a few tips on how to write up and share your story if you're looking at giving a speech or submitting a written story at any point in time. But some good general things to know that legislators want to hear. And then, like I said, we'll take as many questions as there are. So, quick review of our legislative priorities first. And these are things that the Arc of Virginia and the Arc of Northern Virginia are working on. And some of these are things that our partners are working on that we're really strongly supporting, since not any one of us can carry all the bills and we work as a community. One of those things is some changes to the DD waiver system. That developmental disability Medicaid waiver is such a critical tool for people with disabilities to get long-term care supports. But we know it's not perfect. So we want to look at a few adjustments. One, though there is a plan to fund people in crisis waiting for those waivers, that leaves the great majority of the list people who haven't yet entered crisis, and we don't want them to have to be driven into crisis to get care. So we're asking for $250,000 for a study to look at what we're calling core services. What would it take to offer some basic care? Respite, weekly hours of care, a case manager, those kinds of things to folks, so that in the future, when you applied for a DD Medicaid waiver, you were given core services, a smaller bundle of care. And then as your needs increased, you could get more care. But to get us out of this system now where it's haves and haves nots, crisis to get help, very long waiting list, unpredictable wait times, those kinds of things to move us forward. Another thing we're looking at is the reimbursement rate for supported living. Supported living is a Medicaid service that's technically been allowed since 2016, but is very, very rarely used because it's frankly a money loser. It costs providers money to offer it. They can't even break even. It's the same idea as you can imagine person with a disability, maybe with one or two friends, choosing an apartment, a townhouse, they're living together, they've got staff there as much or as little as they need, right? We've got a life wrapped around them. But that service pays 1/3 less than it does to live in a group home with four people, where we know folks have fewer choices on who their staff members are, who their roommates are, where exactly they're going to live, those kinds of things. And so we want to make those costs similar to get them right in line. That's a one-time ask to bring those measures to the same place, and then going forward, it would carry on. We want to look at building capacity of providers in our system. Speaking of supported living, we know there are some other innovative services where we haven't really seen a lot of growth in terms of providers offering them because providers haven't had the support that they necessarily needed to develop those new programs. So some funding to get those things up and going. We want to make sure that if you are a person using the waiver and you're under 18 years old, if you ever have to hire a parent, or if you're over 18 and you ever have to hire your spouse to be your waiver caregiver, okay, we get that that's sometimes the reality. We don't want that choice to mean that you lose all respite, all extra care and breaks for the entire year. And that's the way the rules are set up right now. So we'll be supporting a plan from Delegate Shin that looks at adjusting that change. And Senator Favola has put forth ideas about the Medicaid Works program. Right now, it keeps people with DD waiver from entering, but if we could, it would mean DD waiver users could earn a lot more money and stay enrolled in the Medicaid waiver system by essentially buying into it. Some partner bills that we're looking at are one, again, with Senator Favola, and this time with Rev Up Virginia, making sure voting rights are more protected for people who are either under guardianship or where guardianship is being considered. To make sure that school staff are trained on assistive and augmentative communication devices and tools for any students who need them. To make sure that when we've got people with disabilities entering a crisis, we have more options for respite and for rapid response that aren't incarceration. To make sure that for children in the school system who have IEPs, that there's a plan within that IEP to make sure that child is safely evacuated in the event of an emergency that's customized for that child, right? If they're likely to need lifting, that they're likely to run away with the sirens, those kinds of things, that we're practicing and working that plan. We know that support coordinators, those case managers who help people access their waivers, are underpaid. That position turns over a lot. So there's work being done to increase the reimbursement rate for support coordinators that we'll be supporting. There's all sorts of bills looking at increasing reimbursement rates for providers. That's something we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. A great group out of Richmond called D3 for decriminalizing developmental disabilities is looking at legislation to make it easier to defer, to hold off on charging someone with disability with a crime if what we're seeing is really the manifestation of that disability. We weren't seeing someone who was out to break the law. We were seeing someone in crisis. We were seeing someone who was talked into something, someone who didn't understand what was going on, those kinds of things, to make sure that we're not ramming those people through the prison system where it's not a good fit for them. And also to make sure that there's funding for housing vouchers. The State Rental Assistance Program, commonly called SRAP, funds housing just for the developmental disability community, folks who either have or are waiting for a Medicaid waiver. We want to make sure there are more of those vouchers to go around so folks can keep living where they want and doing so affordably. So with those sorts of issues in mind, where are we going to talk about them? Well, tonight, Monday, December 16th, the Arlington General Assembly delegation is doing their annual town hall. This is hosted by the League of Women Voters of Arlington, Alexandria. It'll be in the county boardroom. If you'd like to come out tonight between 7 and 9 to support our speakers, please do. We'll have a number of folks there talking about the same kinds of issues we just mentioned. This is a hearing where speakers are limited to just 2 minutes to say everything they want to say. So it's really fast and furious. I think it's a really powerful place to be. It's the first time most years legislators are hearing from a big group of constituents and getting ready to go to Richmond. It's a very active and engaged community, just a really good place to learn and see some of that advocacy in motion. That'll continue right on through the new year. On January 3rd, all around the state and divided into 5 chunks, Northern Virginia being one of those chunks or regions, there will be regional budget hearings, and those will be members of the state Senate and the state House who sit on the money committees, Senate Finance and House Appropriations. Those are the people who will be responsible for amending Virginia's budget, changing our plans to spend money next year. So that hearing, as you can imagine, we're really focusing on things that cost money or are otherwise going to impact the budget to make sure they know that that's a really important and smart way to spend Virginia's dollars. So those speakers will be drilling home the financial needs, reimbursement rates, core services, other kinds of things with a cost tagged to them. If you would like to sign up to speak, I'm happy to help folks figure out how to do that. Signups generally open the day before. That hearing is all virtual. The following day, Saturday, January 4th will be the Fairfax County Delegation Town Hall. And this is sort of the sister town hall to the Arlington Town Hall I described tonight, where then any delegate or senator that serves Fairfax County will be in the county government center that day, and they'll hear speeches up to 3 minutes from folks who've signed up in advance to share all kinds of thoughts and concerns. We've got our speakers set for that day. They're really incredible and powerful, but again, we're always happy to help other people understand how to sign up and to get you information about that. Those are the three big ones, the Arlington, the budget hearing, and the Fairfax town halls before legislators go into session in early January. But almost all of our Northern Virginia legislators come home every single weekend during session. So on Saturday or Sunday mornings or afternoons, it's common that at a local community center or school, they'll host small town halls. They'll check in, they'll give a little update about what's going on with the bills that they've put forward, a quick overall review of what's happening with General Assembly. Some years there are hot button issues, and they'll talk about those kinds of things. But then they'll also wait to hear from people. It's less a time for speeches, but more a time for questions. So if you would be interested into going to one of those local town halls, which would be in your own community, generally speaking, we would work with you. I'll attend with you if I don't have a conflict. And it'll be opportunities to do things like say, can you update me on where we are with reforming the DD waiver? My child has been waiting for 10 years. Or I'm someone with a waiver and I've been trying really hard to work. Are we going to pass Medicaid Works this year? It's just saying a couple of words to make them know that their constituents care about disability issues. They're listening, they're watching, they're showing up, they're voting, and we want them to have an eye on those issues as well. Again, happy to help folks sign up. Those sometimes we know about weeks in advance, sometimes we only find out about days in advance. So as I see those opportunities, we'll try and send them out to folks who get our advocacy emails. But if you're especially interested, don't hesitate to let me know. When legislators are back in Richmond, not on the weekends, we start to see the same kinds of bills and budget amendments that we talked about moving through the General Assembly. And by that, I mean going in front of committees, being voted on, right? Being heard, people talking about them, deciding whether or not they're going to support them. Sometimes we'll have a bill where we know it's coming up in committee and the likelihood of it passing is hard to predict. It's right on the cusp. That might be the kind of time that we work with our partner, the ARC of Virginia, and use their absolutely awesome advocacy team to send out an action alert that would come through email and would say, hey, this bill or budget amendment or what have you is being considered right now. We have 24 hours or 12 hours or 48 hours. The timing is usually really, really tight to make an impact, to make legislators understand why this is so important. They have absolutely wonderful advocacy software that will allow us to just type in your address. It will automatically find your legislators. It'll give you a template reply that will say, I live here. I very much support this issue. Thank you. But if you have 30 seconds or more to customize it, to just say, this impacts us because it makes a big difference. Legislators absolutely do count how many of those template and form emails they get, but those that are customized make an even bigger impact. So I would say if you don't customize it and you just type in your address, it takes 10 to 15 seconds. If you do customize it, we're talking 1 to 2 minutes, but those are rapid response emails. So be on the lookout for anything that says action alert. Try and open it, click the button and respond as quickly as possible because that's a numbers game. If you have a neighborhood listserv or friends in your area, please feel free to share it. That's a time where we want a lot of responses going in quickly. And though we know not every household has someone with a disability in it, we all know and love someone with a disability. And the voices of others count too, right? We want everyone to be updated on how challenging it is in Virginia to have a disability and to take action, right? We're a stronger community together. Now, I'm going to talk about our famous bus trip. For many, many years, more than I can count, the ARC of Northern Virginia has chosen a day to take a big charter bus down to Richmond. On that day, anyone is welcome. They sign up with us in advance, and we'll get them all the materials they need You'll come to our office very, very early in the morning. The bus will drive us straight to Richmond, or you can choose to meet us there. And we'll go into the General Assembly building to in person talk with our legislators, hand them physical copies of our legislative agenda, and echo the same kinds of things that they should have been hearing from us in town halls, budget hearings, action alerts, those sorts of things. But those in person visits are a great chance to make a connection. Historically speaking, we've gone from room to room in little groups trying to make sure we covered all the legislators. This year, I think we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to try reserving, I shouldn't say renting out, reserving a conference room in the General Assembly building and having legislators walk down the hall to come to us. That way, we're not on such a hectic schedule and jostling with elevators and those kinds of things. I may have some people who do that if they really like that piece, that up and down, and going out to offices in particular, but we're trying to make this day more accessible and accommodating and inclusive. It's going to be Thursday, January 23rd that we go down on the bus. You'll have to be at the offices of the Arc of Northern Virginia between 6:30 and 6:45 a.m. to get on that bus on time, because at 6:45 it's going to be wheels up. And we're out headed down to Richmond to be dropped off just before 9 a.m. and go right in and start our advocacy for the day. Our state chapter has historically been wonderful about providing lunch vouchers for the cafeteria and the ground floor at the General Assembly building. So lunch is covered. We'll pay for the cost of the bus. We'll give you an orange scarf like you can see folks in the picture wearing, or a button, or anything else that we want you to have or need. So no cost to you. It should just be a really fun day to advocate. It's a good day to listen and learn if you're new to this or you're not really comfortable talking really much with strangers. Or it's a great day to talk a little bit about your story. I'm so and so. The issue I'm most concerned about is housing vouchers because I really want to move out, right? In just a couple of sentences, carrying that big message about what matters to you. This is a great day for that kind of advocacy, making friends. Goodness, we have just the most fun crew of people who go down. So you can wear comfortable clothing. Again, you can see people in the picture. Some folks wear sneakers, some folks wear heels or boots. There's nothing that's not right so long as you're comfortable and you feel good about it. But it is late January, so we're always keeping an eye on the weather, and that's one thing we can't control. We'll be as thoughtful and warm as we can. To get a sense of what that bus looks like, we'll leave that morning, and we'll meet in room question mark, because I don't have our conference room assigned yet. But we'll send that out to folks who sign up to ride the bus, and then we'll engage with those legislators. As a legislator comes in the room, I'll say, "Hi, delegate Hope. We're so glad to see you. You have some constituents over here I wanted you to meet. We wanted to give you a copy of our legislative agenda. Let you tell this person their story real quickly," right? And then we'll move them through the room. And as another legislator comes in, we'll move them through the room as well. It'll be lots of chances to talk with people. And then once that's all done, our legislators leave that office building and they go down to the room where they actually pass laws and vote on things. Usually we're able to go over and watch their day start. They'll call the session to order. Sometimes they're able to introduce us and we can wave way up in the stands and say, "Hi, the Arc of Northern Virginia is here." And then we'll leave that session, get some lunch, and head back on the bus just before 1 p.m. to hopefully be back about 3 p.m. at our offices in the Arc of Northern Virginia. If that day sounds interesting to you, if that's new, or if you want to drive, kind of lots of details about that. So all of our legislators that cover Northern Virginia will be asked to talk with us that day. All of our meetings will be in that one same building. Even if we have to move from one conference room to another or one office to another, it's all in the same building. The meetings are very, very short. I would say in the best case scenario, you get 15 minutes with a legislator, but a lot of times it's less than 5. They're super busy. They only have 45 calendar days to pass all of the laws for the year, have hundreds of meetings to review thousands and thousands of pages of bills to amend the budget, right? Timing is really, really tight. This is why we do so much work throughout the year and before session to educate them on our agenda, because this is just our little boost. This isn't a time to educate them on something they've never heard about. This is a time to say, remember when so-and-so talked about core services? Here's another family that needs them. Remember when someone talked about how hard it was to keep a job or to get married and be able to work? Here's another person having that shared experience, right? And thank you for your help. That's a day to give them the boost and the reminder that they need. Sometimes we meet with legislator staff instead of the legislators themselves. It's a great day to take pictures. Those legislators are great photo takers. They're good at smiling. We're usually all wearing a united color, those kinds of things. And those pictures are a helpful reminder of all the advocacy you all are doing, and they are. I will say it's the kind of day where we need folks coming who can be flexible. The building is crowded. There are brighter LED lights there. Because of the crowds, it can be noisy or people might touch you. I mean, not in an inappropriate way, but be crowded against you, maybe bump against your shoulder or ask you to move out of the way if the big group is coming through. Sometimes the schedule has to change at the last minute because of weather or what the legislators have going on. So we will be there with you for all of it. We will tell you what's going on. We'll help you navigate the change. But if you're thinking about coming, keep in mind that's a good day for folks who are comfortable being up and moving about in that sort of loud, busy environment for a couple of hours at least. If you want a quiet spot, absolutely, you can always go walk down the hall and we can help work on finding a quieter place to sit. But it's a busy, loud advocacy day, but a lot of fun. All right. So as a reminder, when we're having these meetings, if it's in a speech, if it's in person, if it's at a town hall, when you get a couple of minutes, one of the things you always want to say is your name and where you live. It helps legislators remember you and keep you in mind as a constituent, someone who can vote for them. That matters. Thank them for what they're doing. My goodness, I know that change is sometimes really, really painfully slow, especially in Virginia, but we have an incredible group of Northern Virginia legislators. Not a single one of them do I feel like isn't with us, is trying to slow things down. They are doing a hard and difficult job. So we never want to have a conversation with them where we don't say thank you because they don't hear it enough and they've certainly earned it. You want to think about what your one or maybe two most important issues are because you're not going to have very long with them. And either a speech or a face-to-face conversation, anything. Those sorts of conversations go very quickly because, like I said, their timing is really tight. So if someone else says something you agree with, instead of you giving a speech about the same thing, you can say, that's my experience too. Give a thumbs up, give jazz hands, right? Do other things that we can do with gestures or words or two to give a ditto to echo what that other person is saying. We'll also encourage folks who are coming to any kind of in-person meetings to leave something behind. The same kinds of things we're talking about: an introduction of yourself, a quick highlight of the issues that matter most to you, and a thank you to your legislators. And anytime you have questions, let me know. Um, if you're not able to come to Richmond in person, we usually follow up with our legislators and do virtual visits. There's one picture here on the screen. Anyone who's a constituent is welcome to join. We'll talk with legislators about our legislative agenda. We'll highlight them meeting the people in the room who are usually constituents. So this is another thing. Be on the lookout for me. Be prepared to give a 10 to 15 second, hi, my name is Lucy. I live in the south part of Arlington. The issue I'm most concerned about is supports to the Medicaid waiver program, those kinds of things. We'll move through those groups quickly. We'll answer questions that legislators have. So lots and lots of opportunities to highlight again as you're thinking about telling your story with legislators, knowing that those meetings are short. In writing is a great way to get down some more details. I would say the front of one page is about the maximum that we can hope they would read. If you put pictures on there, we're all drawn to pictures. They tell such stories, don't they? That's a great way to capture their attention and tell a little bit of the story beyond what you can otherwise. But that's a good choice if you're interested in coming to Richmond or going to a town hall, meeting with a legislator. But that speaking aloud or speaking extemporaneously if things change makes you feel nervous, having that written up is a great way to go. Just say, hey, I wanted to leave this with you. Could you read this later? And absolutely they will. They and their teams are really good about that. I'm going to pivot now to see if folks had questions that we could address. We went through lots of things. So just keep in mind, you'll be getting many emails from me at the Arc of Northern Virginia with reminders of how to sign up for the bus, reminders of virtual events, reminders of hearings, all kinds of other things. I just wanted folks to know sort of what was coming and how they could quickly respond and engage in case this was new, in case they needed a refresher, they wanted to try something different this year. But this sort of pattern of hearings before General Assembly, bus to Richmond, virtual meetings, weekend town halls is very similar to what we've done in past years. So if you've done any of this before, it will feel similar. Each year it adjusts a little bit. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so anytime, please feel free to reach out to me to tell me what you're concerned about, how you want to engage, and otherwise just start looking for messages from me that will come very intensely this time of year. If you've gotten advocacy emails from us over the long term, you'll know I don't always send out a ton of emails and things like that. So it will seem like you're hearing from me a lot, but that'll be relatively short-lived. Oh, so another question about DD waiver income levels. There was a bill that passed this year, earlier in 2024, that's making it easier for people who have a developmental disability waiver, whose parents have retired or passed away, causing them, the waiver user, to get a higher level Social Security benefit. That happens when a parent retires or passes away. But to make sure that happens, we're not jeopardizing that person's waiver eligibility or reducing their ability to work. That bill that went out this year essentially said about creating a 2-year pilot program. Says try it for 2 years, come back and talk to us. So the regulations for how to get that done are coming out this month, and then the software has to be written for the Medicaid eligibility people to adjust it. And that should be ready in another couple of months, and then we'll start doing this. So I don't think in 2025 there will be a whole lot to do other than sort of keep in the back of our minds that next year we're going to go back and have to make that change permanent. Hopefully then with some good data from having implemented this in the meantime. Yeah, Medicaid actually published a week ago a report on this, but because they haven't allowed anyone to do this yet, all of these regulations have been getting approved and the software hasn't been written to allow Medicaid eligibility workers to do it differently. The report just says, we could do this. Seems like it would work. Seems like it makes sense. Doesn't seem like it's going to cost a bunch of money. But we knew all of those things. So we'll be waiting for this to actually be implemented to be able to share something more substantive with legislators. Thank you all for your advocacy and for joining us today. I look forward to working with you in late 2024, early 2025, and far beyond. Bye-bye.